Now, the African National Congress today celebrates its 109th birthday since its formation in 1912. And in line with the new global norm introduced by COVID-19 disruption, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver the traditional January 8th statement virtually this evening. And as the oldest liberation movement in Africa, the ANC has seen glorious days as well as numerous challenges over the years. And these include a steady decline in electoral support, much criticism over corruption that seems to have become endemic, and of course the perpetual factionism within the party. And joining us now is the ANC veteran Apollo Jordan to reflect on the party's history and its journey to this point. Mr. Jordan, thanks for your time and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning. Good morning to the folks at home.
Now, the African National Congress January 8th statement did not only have great significance during the party's difficult years in exile, it has also continued to be one of the party's traditions. But what is its significance in recent years?
Could you repeat?
I was asking the significance of the January 8th statement in recent times, especially for the ANC.
Well, the January 8th statement has always been a moment for reflection, for introspection on part of the ANC. And because now the ANC is a party of government, it's also a moment for reflection about the state of the country and about the ANC's own role in governing the country. It also serves, in a sense, as marching orders for the members and supporters of the movement for the coming year, and a reflection on what the ANC as a movement has achieved in the preceding year, and the degree and extent to which it has attained the objectives it set itself the previous year. So that continues to be the role of the January 8th statement. What seems to be forgotten by many people sometimes is that it's also a birthday, which is why it was sometimes, well, since 1990 at any rate, has been marked with what might be called a small celebration, a sort of birthday party, and also a rally serves as a moment for mobilizing and rallying your supporters and membership for the year ahead.
Now, Mr. Jordan, when South Africa, democratic South Africa, started out in 1994, it was a land of promise, and it was a land that was supposed to deliver a better life for all South Africans. And some would say that despite a great constitution and policies, we are struggling as a country to take ourselves out of the adverse trajectory that we were and are currently on. And as someone who's been in government and now has the benefit of hindsight, how would you assess the progress that we've made and the ANC's ability to deliver on that promise of a better life for all?
I don't know how old you are, but what I recall about the time when we came into government office in 1994 was that the country had passed through probably one of the bloodiest periods in its history. There had been massive violence in areas like KwaZulu-Natal and in the Gauteng area. On the very eve of those first general elections, there were bombs in the center of Johannesburg. And I think the day before, or even the day of the election, a bomb at Johannesburg airport. So this might have been a time when there was great hope, but we're also emerging from a time of extreme tensions in the country. We shouldn't forget that. And the first priority, or amongst the first priorities for the ANC in government, was to restore a sense of stability in the country. That was one of the first priorities. Now, in terms of the promise for a better life, I think it's only the blind who would say that the lives of South Africans have not changed substantially since that time. They have changed. They might not have changed to the extent one would have hoped for or that one had planned for, but that is a different question.
Mr. Jordan, the ANC, pretty much like many South Africans, also agrees that the country requires a program of fundamental change to steer it to better economic productivity, because we are struggling there. The joblessness in this country is becoming a problem that we don't seem to have an answer to. How do you believe the party or the organization should deal with this perpetual list of structural ills? And you know that we used to speak of the triple threat, and that continues to be a problem for South Africa and for the ANC in government. How should we deal with that?
Yes, we should first of all recognize that the ANC is a political movement and a political party in government. And we do not have a socialist economy in South Africa. The economy, in very, very large measure, is privately owned. So in terms of expanding the economy, there's just so much the government can do. The government has tried to create a climate in which investment is encouraged and in which investment will grow. But I don't think the private sector in South Africa has come to that party. Now, we can coerce them to. You know, the most you can do is prod, encourage, beg, persuade, etc. The one thing you cannot do is twist people's arms. So that is one dimension of the problem. The second dimension of the problem is that the ANC came into office as government at a time when the South African economy and the world economy was undergoing a major transformation. These days, people speak of the fourth industrial revolution. Then we're still talking about the third industrial revolution, which was the introduction of digitization. Sorry. Right. So that is one of the problems which South Africa and any government would face, that the South African economy is undergoing this transformation. Transformation from what used to be a labor-intensive economy to what has become a more capital-intensive economy. And because we don't control the levers of power in the economy, there's just so much the government can do with respect to that as well. However, one can say that one of the things that the ANC government initiated was the digitization of South Africa. The telecommunications revolution in South Africa is one of the great successes of the ANC. You think about what telephone density was like in South Africa in 1994 and compare it with today, chalk and cheese. You could hardly communicate within the African community using the telephone before 1994. These days, virtually everyone who can afford it has a cell phone. That came with the ANC government. We are using a technology now which was not available before 1994. This too came with the ANC government. So when we weigh what the government has achieved and not achieved, we should all factor all those things into it.
Difficult, though, Mr. Jordan, for people who are struggling. And, you know, at the time, even when South Africa did see some economic growth, we still struggle to actually make sure that we change the joblessness situation in the country. And it seems to be getting worse. And many people have asked this question about, as per your admission, the ANC actually not having, you know, control over the economy. To what extent does that...
It's not an admission. It's a fact. It's not an admission. It's a fact. There is one country in South Africa that controls over 60% of what's traded on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's a fact.
Yeah.
The ANC does not. It's not an admission.
Well, it is a fact, and it is an admission by yourselves about, this particular problem that exists, because many would say if you don't control the economy, then but basically you're not running the country.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. That's one way of looking at it. But then what are you proposing? That we should transition to socialism?
Well,
I would personally, but I mean, if that is what you're proposing, come up front and say so. The fact of the matter is the South African economy is a capitalist economy controlled by capitalist corporations. That is not an admission. It is a fact. It constrains the government, any government, in its capacity to do certain things. Now, if you say that, why don't you control the economy? Posing a different question. And then you have to come to me with certain proposals about how we could change that. I'm not saying I'm opposed to an economy controlled by government or socialism. But if that is what you're proposing, come up front and say so.
no,
Debate that.
I'm not proposing anything at this stage. I'm simply asking a few questions, Mr. Jordan, because in terms of the promises that are being made by the African National Congress to the South African people, obviously the South African people know that if the government says they are going to deliver A, B, C, D, this is what they should expect. But is the ANC promising things that, in fact, it cannot deliver upon because of some of those structural constraints?
What has it promised which it has not delivered on?
A better life for all. And many South Africans are saying they are not seeing that better life. And I know what your response was earlier on. But as I had pointed out, if you look at some of the economic structural ills, if you look at how people are now basically having to struggle with this corruption that has taken root within the African National Congress, you only have to look at municipalities. Look at the AG's report about how municipalities have basically fallen apart across this country. And people are saying this is what they mean when they say we are not seeing that better life for all right now.
No one is denying that there are those problems. And I am the last person to deny that there is corruption in the country. And I'm not denying that there are ANC people involved in that corruption. What I am talking about is the fact that it is only the blind who will say the situation of South Africans has not improved since 1994. And as I said, and I repeat, we may not have achieved everything we wanted to, but the situation of South Africa has improved. It definitely has improved.
So
even in terms of your own situation, it has improved. Personally.
how so, Mr. Jordan?
Are you not a black South African?
I am.
And you say, are you going to tell me your situation has not improved?
No. I'm just asking because, you stated almost as a matter of fact, in terms of, but I don't want to get sidetracked by that. I want to come back to why some of the problems exist, because some would say, in terms of, again, the factional battles within the African National Congress itself, people seem to be more focused on that. If you go down again to municipal level, I think it was in December, there was an article about an ANC member, a senior branch member, who was killed during a BGM. And the family is now suing the African National Congress. And people are saying that's part of the problem. The African National Congress and its members are so focused on lining their own pockets, on doing what is best for them personally, that they have forgotten to run this country. And that is why things are seemingly falling apart. You look at the state-owned entities that seem to have been looted, to the bone in some instances. That's why we have the State Capture Commission of Inquiry at the moment into allegations of state capture, because things just seem to have gone horribly wrong. So how does the ANC deal with that, the factional nature of things and how it has played out in the broader public?
Yes. Now, there are a couple of things I think you have to note there. You mentioned a Zondo Commission. Who instituted the Zondo Commission? I leave that to your listeners. Secondly, on factionism, on the issue of factionism, you will find differences amongst people in any political organization. At a certain point, of course, if the stakes are very high in the political contest, people might then coalesce into like-minded groups, which are sometimes called factions. And that can sometimes get out of hand. And to a certain extent, that has become a big, big problem in the ANC. One of the reasons, one of the factors that fuels factionism in the ANC is that the character of the ANC itself has changed because of the transition from apartheid to democracy, transition from a party of struggle to a party of government. So all those things fuel the factionism. But I think it is an overstatement of the worst order to say, oh, no, 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 no. ANC people are only concerned with lining their own pockets. You would not be able to demonstrate. You see, that's the sort of thing that's good for Sunday journalism and headlines, but it is not the truth. It's not the truth. And when you do that sort of exaggeration,
But it is true, Dr. Jordan. It is true. Even now, when we are dealing with a pandemic, we're still dealing with corruption, where members of the African National Congress have been fingered. There are many probes. There's action being taken against members of the ANC for once again finding themselves, caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
And who is catching them?
But law enforcement has to do its job, doesn't it?
Who is catching them?
Are you saying it's the ANC that's catching them, Mr. Jordan?
Who is catching them? Who instituted the Zondo Commission?
Well,
No, it is the ANC government. Look, I'm not here to defend corruption, and don't try to put me to that position. What I want to deal with, right, are known facts. The Zondo Commission is a commission set up by the ANC government. And it has done the ANC any favors, that Zondo Commission. The things you're talking about were exposed by that Zondo Commission instituted by the ANC government. If the ANC government wanted to cover up corruption, it need not have instituted the Zondo Commission.
But what do you mean by that, Mr. Jordan? What do you mean? That the ANC, if it wanted to, could not have set up the Zondo Commission, because you have institutional bodies in this country that have been set up, and one of them in the Public Protector's Office actually recommended that commission be set up. So isn't it overstating the point to say that it is the ANC government that instituted that particular commission?
Is that untrue?
No, it's not necessarily untrue, but I'm asking whether you are perhaps overstating the fact that, because it had to take people to come out and blow the whistle. It had to take institutions that were set up. It was not the ANC, for example, itself that said, we have a problem here with systemic and endemic corruption, and therefore we, as the African National Congress or the African National Congress and government of our own volition, are going to set up this commission. It didn't happen that way, Mr. Jordan.
The public protector, or what we used to call the Ombudsman, that was introduced in the Constitution at Kempton Park. By whom? The situation is that the public protector made certain recommendations which the government implemented. The government need not have done so. The ANC government did do so. In the past, when things were exposed, as happened, for example, about prison conditions in South Africa in 1965. South African editor, Lawrence Gander, was hauled before the courts for doing that. That's what used to happen in the past. These days, when something is exposed, what the government does, it sets up a commission to investigate it. And then you are able to tell me all these terrible things about the corruption that people are engaged in.
Again,
That is a difference which you have to recognize. And to try to deny it, to try and make some point that, the ANC is, I don't know what point you're trying to make actually, is sort of integrally corrupt or something like that. You are absolutely wrong. There are problems of corruption in the ANC as there are problems of corruption in the society. ANC is not exempt from that. But the difference is, rather than say, really there's corruption, gee, who said that? Lawrence Gander, investigate him, lock him up. What we did was set up a commission of inquiry, which is doing the ANC no favors.
We are...
That is the difference. And please, do recognize it. Do recognize the difference.
Well, I do. And as you say, and this has been a point that has been gone over time and time again, where people will say, it is not the African National Congress that is corrupt. It is members of the African National Congress. I think, we can go on for a while there, but we're out of time. And I just want to put this final question to you, Mr. Jordan. The Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Jesse Duarte, speaking at a memorial or funeral service of a former ANC member, is reported to have said that the ANC, perhaps the country would descend into civil war if the ANC were to lose power. And I'd just like to have your reflection on that, because this is something that some commentators have mooted before, saying that, it is a question whether if the ANC were to lose power, as we've seen it lose electoral support steadily over the last few years, whether the ANC would actually hand over power willingly.
You see, I asked you at the beginning how old you were. Maybe it's important that you should know that. In 1994, when the ANC came into government, it lost 2 provinces. We didn't sweat. The ANC has been losing elections nationally, provincially, locally. We don't sweat. I don't know why, this question even arises. What will the ANC do if we should lose the national election? Judging on its behavior, and that is how we usually judge how people will behave in the future. You look at their behavior in the past. The ANC has lost elections. It hasn't caused problems. In the province where I'm living now, of which I'm speaking, from where I'm speaking, the ANC is not in government, either at the local government level here at Cape Town or at the provincial level. You are not seeing us doing what happened in the United States the day before yesterday, for example. So please, don't insult me by asking a question like that.
Mr. Jordan, with respect, I'm not insulting you. I'm putting to you, I'm saying to you what was stated by the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. And this is what I don't understand. What do you mean that I'm insulting you by putting the question to you of something that was said?
Because, you see, I am telling you, we judge people's future behavior by how they behaved in the past. The ANC has lost elections. It didn't do what other people who lose elections do, like happened day before yesterday in the US. Haven't done that anyway. Now, to suggest that we might do that is insulting. It isn't.
I am not suggesting, Mr. Jordan. I am putting it to you as something that was said. It is reported that this was said by the Deputy Secretary General of the party. That's all I'm putting to you.
She's saying we would not accept the result.
The country might descend into civil war. That is the suggestion.
That is not what she said. And if you want an explanation of her remarks, you have the freedom to ask her.
I certainly shall, because I'm just trying to find it here, because I was reading this yesterday, and hence I'm putting it to you. And we unfortunately have to leave it there, Mr. Jordan, but as always, you know, a pleasure engaging you. We certainly shall look at that again. But thank you so much for your time. ANC veteran Paulo Jordan there, ahead of the ANC's January 8th statement this evening, and reflecting on the ANC as an organization that contributed enormously in black liberation in this country, and the role now as South Africa's ruling party. And